Well, hell's bells, it's story time again. It's early September. The weather has cooled a bit, which is great because the Tahoe fire is just raging on. And the cooler weather means the fire doesn't move quite as fast, and the fire crews can kind of catch up with that. I live probably 150 miles from Tahoe. Well, maybe not 100, maybe 100 miles from Tahoe, at least that part of Tahoe. So, all we're getting is the smoke, which has been pretty intense for, a month and a half now. So, and I'm sitting in front of my lathe, my Clausing lathe, gonna put that sucker up for sale. I got another one that I'm watching, and I think I want to switch it out and get a more versatile lathe. But anyhow, this one's for sale. If you're interested, wait till the end of this video, and I've put my my email, and you can contact me. Okay, on with the story. So, I started writing, I was probably 32 or 33 years old when I actually sat down and made my first attempt. It took about 12 years to finish that first novel. So now I'm 45, and I really like the process. The first book was a piece of crap. It's still sitting, the manuscript's still sitting underneath my desk. I have yet to look at it again. But anyhow, so I went on and wrote Maranther's Deception and Dias, D-I-A-S, two early novels that came out pretty good. And then, one night I'm sitting at the kitchen table with 4 or 5 friends, and we're all talking about psychics. Now, here in Nevada City, which I lovingly call Nirvana Silly, there's a psychic on every corner, or at least there was back in the 90s. Maybe we've all gotten old and reality is set in. I'm not sure, but at that point there was psychics everywhere. I mean, you just couldn't you couldn't turn and not run into one. Anyhow, we were all talking about the different psychic phenomena, and it kind of went from one person to the next, and the next person told a story about their favorite psychic and how important he was to their life, and oh my God, it was so exciting. Then it went around the table, and it came to me, and I went, well, I've got a psychic too. And they go, really? Who is it? And I says, Biker Bob. And, I got a couple of snickers, and the night went on. But it kind of stuck with me, the words. And actually, the next morning, I sat down and started writing the 4-book novel, or novel series, called Channeling Biker Bob. And, it started out kind of a goofball situation, but fairly quickly, the characters that came into that book just took over. And I was left with, just kind of following the story as it went. So, a year goes by, I finished Biker Bob 1, very excited. I, went out there and did a bunch of book signings. Oh my God, I was gonna, make $1 million, and, I probably sold a couple hundred novels. I gave away probably 300 or 400. I went on and, because I'd committed to writing the 4 books, and so I wrote Biker Bob 2, which was about anger. Biker Bob 1 was about the soft male. So anyhow, wrote Biker Bob 2 within about a year. Wrote Biker Bob 3 within about another year. And we're sitting at about 2006 at that point when I'd finished Biker Bob 3. And Biker Bob 4 was a little more difficult. I kind of waited for almost a whole year to write it because I wrote something in between that I was pretty excited about. And I was still doing art shows at that point with my jewelry. So I'd go out to an art show and I'd set up the jewelry tables, and I always left one little corner that I'd set up some books and sell some books. And I sold a fair amount of books through these art shows because here I am standing there, the author, and I can hawk my books, and if it's $15, people, yeah, sure, I'll take it. And so I got a reasonable following just from doing art shows. But my philosophy or my thought was that if a person picked up a book, they were going to walk away with it either way. Either they were going to buy it, but if they chose not to buy it, I would just give it to them. And, I had a bunch of books. I think I made 5,000 copies of that first Biker Bob. And, as I said, I sold a couple hundred, at least that first year. Probably almost 1,000 by the time I got to the end. Not much, but, hey, I was still kind of breaking in. So I decided that's what I would do, is I would give the book away, and then I'd get them on my mailing list. And so I kind of did that. I was doing a show in Tahoe, in fact, and I probably gave 20 books away that day and probably sold about 10. And, finished the show, went home. A month goes by, 2 months goes by, and I get this call. And it's this woman from Hollywood. And she says, I read your book, and I really like the story, and I'm a movie producer, and I want to make a movie out of it. I'm like, yeah. All of a sudden, the stars, the lights go off in my head, and I'm seeing stars, and I'm driving new Mercedes, and getting a bigger house, and oh man, I'm in seventh heaven. But so she says, well, why don't you send me a half a dozen copies? I'll take it to my board, and we'll talk about how it's going to work out. I said, yeah, I'll send you a half a dozen copies, which I did. And this was for Biker Bob 1. And I says, well, how did you find my book? She goes, well, I was camping in Tahoe in July, and my next door neighbor in the campsite packed up and left, and I kept noticing this book sitting on the bench, and I couldn't help myself. I walked over there and I picked it up, and it was Channeling Biker Bob. And I'm thinking, wow, what I don't even know the word, but what a series of events to happen. So anyhow, she says, she gets back with me after a couple of weeks, and she says, okay, we're interested in the book. We want to take an option on the book. Now, an option is kind of like, renting the rights of the book. And I said, fine. So she, and standard is they give you $100 and they rent the book for a period of time. And I said, okay, you can rent the rights to the book. And what that means is that I can't sell the book to anybody else. And until, just so they can get all their ducks in a row. So she gives me the $100, and I signed a legal document that says you can have the book for a year, and So I don't hear from her for I don't know, 2 or 3 months, and and then another month goes by, and I give her a call, and she goes, "Well, it didn't really work out, but I'm still working on it." And I'm like, "Okay, fine." So another month or two goes by, and we get to the end of the year, and it still hasn't happened, and I'm like pretty disappointed. And she says, but I still want to keep working on it. I just don't want to take another option out on it. I said, well, okay, that's fine. So, I kind of, the Mercedes went out the window. The new house kind of went on the back burner. The new shop, which is one part of my plan. So anyhow, this is 2006, I would say, somewhere in there. Couple 2 or 3 months go by. I'm not thinking of nothing. And this guy calls me up one day and he says, well, it turns out that we have a new warrior training in Michigan or something like that. And would you like to send us some books? Because I read your book, and it fits right in with our new warrior program. Now, it's called Mankind Project, and you could look it up, mankind.org. Good system for guys. Anyhow, so I said, yeah, sure, I'll send you some books. And so I boxed up a box of books, probably 30 or 40 of them, and shipped them over to Michigan, and they had this conference, and all the books disappeared. I just gave them away, and a month later, this guy calls me up. He says, I was at that conference, and I got one of those books, and I really liked the story. I want to make a movie out of it. And I'm like, really? Of course, the Mercedes and the new house and the new studio were a little less grandiose. I'm thinking, well, okay, maybe I can just buy a new Camry. Not a new one, a used one. I said, okay, yeah, and he says, oh, can I take an option out on it? I said, yeah, okay, take an option out on it for $100. And he said, okay, good. And so he sends me the 100, and I send him the paperwork, and we're locked in. And so he goes and hires a screenwriter. And I think he put about 20 grand into paying that screenwriter to write a screenplay for the novel. So he's all excited. Takes another 6 months or so. He's all excited, and he says, okay, well, I want to send you the manuscript and tell me what you think. So I'm pretty excited because, he's kicked some money out to do this, and it looks like this is a pretty good deal. It's going to be an independent film. So he sends me the manuscript, and I start reading it, and I don't know. The screenwriter maybe had some gay tendencies. I'm not sure what happened, but my main character in the story was gay. I'm like, really? You can't make him gay. That's not what this book is about. And I'm just like, you can't do this. And he says, well, I spent all this money to have it done. I said, but, the guy didn't follow the book at all. He's changed everything. We went round and round for probably a couple months, and trying to figure out how to do this, and he didn't want to rewrite it, and I wasn't going to have him make a movie, because this was an important thing for me. So eventually, we went our separate ways, and I'm like pretty disappointed. That's my second producer. So, another 6 months or 8 months goes by, and Probably a year or so earlier, I had, part of my process was, because in my wild days I spent a little time in jail, and books were an important part of being incarcerated because, you had to have something to do. And so my intention was to send the Biker Bob to all the prisons, to the libraries. So I sent out, I don't know, probably 30 or 40 to, to all the different prisons, especially on the West Coast. And this guy sends me a letter 4 or 5 months after I talked to producer number 2. And he says, oh man, this is the best book. He says, I was able to really get into it. Thank you so much. And I said, no problem. I sent him a note back with the next 2 Biker Bobs. And I said, no problem. And by the way, during this time, because, this guy wrote this kind of gay manuscript, and I got no problems with gay, just that's not what the book was about. So where was I? Oh yeah, the guy in jail. And he says, I'm in jail for a year. And I went, okay, I'm sorry to hear that. And here's some more books. And so I don't hear anything else from him. No more letters. I did get some letters from other prisoners from time to time. And then so anyhow, what happened was probably about a year later, 4 or 5 months after talking to the second, or after trying to make a deal with the second movie producer, this guy calls me. He says, I'm out of jail now. He says, turns out that I'm a Hollywood actor. And look me up. And so, I looked him up, and damn, he's done a hell of a lot of movies. He wasn't a star in any of them, but he was a main player. And I'm like, wow. And he says, I really like this book, and I want to make a movie out of it. And I've got a producer that, he and I are buddies, and I think I can talk him into it. He says, but here's the deal. I'll talk my producer into this movie if you make me the star. If you make me Biker Bob. And he was a perfect Biker Bob, because Biker Bob was this rugged motorcycle character who had died in the 50s and came back as a ghost and harassed Stuart Chance, who was this kind of soft male that couldn't quite get out of his own way. Anyhow, so during that 5 or 6 months between producer number 2 and this guy, I said, screw this, I'm going to write my own screenplay. And so I did. And then I took that screenplay to a screenplay, what would it be? Not a teacher, but a critic, an editor, and he helped me for $5,000, helped me walk through the process of cleaning up the screenplay and making it more presentable. So here, by the time the actor gets back to me, I pretty much have a finished screenplay. And I says, well, it turns out I've got a screenplay already, so why don't I send that to you and you can go through it and see what you think. He says, okay. I sent it to him, and 3 or 4 weeks later, he calls me back. He says, I talked to my producer, and we are ready to go. And I'm like, really? And so he says, okay, here's the phone number of my producer. Give him a call. He wants to talk to you. So I called him up, and the producer said, well, Kevin wants to be Biker Bob, that's good. And so what I want to do is option the rights to this movie for a year, and we'll go from there. He says, I'm going to send you a contract. I said, okay. And so he sent me a contract, and it was like, I don't know, 8 or 10 pages, not just a little, a little one-page contract. And it was pretty complicated. And I went, holy shit, what do I do here? Because he wanted all kinds of rights. And I'm like, I don't know about this. So I take it, but the guy is, he's serious. So I says, okay, you can option my book, but it's going to be for $800. And the guy says, no problem, I'll take it. So he sends me the $800. I spent $900 on a lawyer going over this contract to make sure that all my rights were being taken care of, and they were. The guy was totally on the up and up. So I signed the contract. Everything starts to move forward. He's calling me about once a week, and he's saying, okay, I got such and such actor for Renee, and I got this actor for this part, and I found this perfect Stuart Chance, and I'm like, really, man? He's like building this whole movie in front of me. I'm pretty excited. I'm thinking, man, this is good. So he gets to one point, and this is like, probably July 2008. And he gets to this one point, and he says, okay, I have the money. I gathered 3 or 4 different production companies that are willing to kick in the money, and we're ready to move forward with this play. He says, at the end of the play, I want to change that a little bit, and everything that I do, I want to make sure that you're okay with it. And I'd say, fine. He says, but as far as we can tell, this thing's going to go ahead. So I'm like pretty excited. And we go on for another month and a half. He continually is talking to me. And that was probably September 2008. I don't know if you remember what happened right around that time of the year or that time of the decade, but he says, okay, so we're ready to go. We're gonna send you a contract and a check for 5 figures. 5 figures? 6 figures. Over 100,000. And I'm like, really? I get to buy that Mercedes after all. Anyhow, I get to pay some bills at least. So I was pretty stoked. My wife we were dancing. We took ourselves out to dinner. Oh man, Celebration Plus. And so anyhow, he says, I'm going to send you the check and the contract, and we're ready to move forward. And that was September 2008. Within about a week, the entire economy collapsed. And that production company went out of business. And I was like, really? Oh, man. The whole thing just fell apart. I was that close. So, then the story goes on. By the way, I'm pretty disappointed. But, it's the times, the economy had collapsed. What else can you do? So, I don't know, a month or two later, I get a call from Jolie, and she is the original first producer. And she says, well, Nick, turns out that I've got a production company ready to have a quick look at this and see if it's going to work out. I'm like, that's the fourth movie producer that wants to make a movie out of this book. Of course, it didn't happen. And, you know, some things work and some things don't. I'm still writing, though. Here's, this time I got a book in hand. This is Biker Bob 4. And it's about apology. And if you're interested in reading one of these books, I can send you one. I could send you a Biker Bob 1 for free. Just send me an email, and that's at the end of this video, and I'll get one in the mail to you. Okay, this is Nick Collier, checking out.